If you ever finish a diet, you switch into a bulk and you're generally surprised by how fast your body's responded, that is not a coincidence. That is not just water weight. There's actually something fascinating happening and a fascinating physiological explanation for why muscle growth after dieting tends to be so much faster than any other point in your training. And once you understand it, it changes how you think about it. And this is what I've kind of been preaching about all the time. This is why when you're leaner, it changes the entire game for building muscle. And it also changes the way you structure your whole year of transformation and training. And that's what I want to get into today, which is basically why dieting primes your body to grow. What's happening under the hood when you make that switch, and how to time it right so you're getting the most out of both phases, the dieting phases, the muscle growing phases, because they go hand in hand. It's a two-way relationship. Before I get into the science of it, I also want to address something that comes up so often. That's the question of when you should be even thinking about building muscle or going into a bulk in the first place. That needs to be covered. Because here's the thing. If you're currently sitting above, let's say 15% body fat, 17% body fat, your first priority is getting leaner, not building muscle, not caring about muscle, obviously caring, but you're not trying to add lots of muscle. You're not trying to build. You're not even trying to recomp at maintenance, which so many guys do. I don't understand it. You need to get into a deficit and bring that body fat down to somewhere around 12%. And the good news is it's not daunting, by the way, as much as it sounded, because if you're 15% and you want to tone down to get into like 10% even, you're talking about losing 15 pounds, 14 pounds, which most guys can do in 4 months, just like that, or 6 months, if they're consistent. So you're looking at being genuinely lean and chiseled in at least half a year. Right, and that's not even a long-term thing in the grand scheme of things in terms of building your body, which will keep with you for the rest of your life. But the problem is, so many people get lean and they just keep cutting, and that's where things go wrong. Like once you're really lean, you've got visible abs, you're in a good place, you can take your top off if anyone asks you, stop dieting in that case, because your body will start to tap more into losing muscle than it would body fat, because it's the easiest thing to lose. Your metabolism starts to downregulate as a survival mechanism, and you get smaller here. So it's really extremely important to know when to stop dieting, because so many guys don't. I speak to guys all the time that have been like, yep, I'm on a constant diet or gaining cycle, but to bring it back, you need to have an endpoint to the cut. And once you hit it, you need to transition, right? Not go straight into a bulk either. Go back towards maintenance for a third of the time. Then you go into a lean bulking phase or a lean performance phase or whatever you want to call it. Everyone's got a name nowadays. Because what happens when you make that switch, the muscle growth comes so much faster after that cut. Like the first thing that's happening here is nutrition partitioning. When you be in a deficit for so long, your body fat is low, your insulin sensitivity improves, which means your body actually becomes a lot more efficient at taking the carbohydrates, taking the calories you eat and driving them towards the muscle groups rather than to stored body fat. And you become a lot more responsive to food, you can say. So when you eat more food, your body's primed to use it. So you don't just become someone that gets bloated, gassy and gains a lot of body fat. You're very primed to gain a lot more muscle. And the extra calories actually become quite useful for use and for glycogen replenishment, for muscle growth directly. And you're essentially a lot more efficient than you were before the cut, which is probably the biggest thing you want to do. You want to ride that way for as long as you can. The second thing is, which is probably the bigger one, is the shift from a catabolic state to an anabolic state. When you're in a calorie deficit, your body is fundamentally in breakdown mode, right? It's trying to lose weight. And even if you're just losing fat, the overall hormonal and metabolic environment is still catabolic. Your body's breaking things down rather than trying to build it up. And obviously there's the argument, can you build muscle while you're dieting? I'm not going to go into that. You can, but there's only so long you can do it for. But building muscle in that environment is still generally hard. Unless you're a beginner, unless it's a new training program, unless you're still getting stronger, which not many people do. Like extremely strong every single week, by the way. But in this case, your body's prioritizing survival and it's catabolic as opposed to focusing growth. And the moment you flip it into a surplus, everything changes. Your body shifts into an anabolic state and it starts to have the resource to repair, to build, to grow. And that contrast between those two states creates this rebound effect, right? Which is where muscle growth happens really rapidly, especially in those first couple of weeks. But think of it as like a compressed spring, basically. The longer and deeper the deficit, the more forcefully the body responds, basically. When you feed it with more food and you increase your calories and you get away from the deficit. And this is actually deeply wired into us from a evolutionary standpoint as well, by the way. Like our ancestors would go through extended periods of food scarcity for months at a time, and the ability to rapidly replenish muscle and body fat when food became available again, and was a general survival advantage, let's say through the winter, the summer months, etc. And that mechanism is still within us, still within you, because when your body has been in this food scarce environment and suddenly has abundance, it responds aggressively. And you can see how fast that people will fill out again and gain lean mass in the first couple of weeks, especially when they transition from a deficit into a growth phase. Then there's also the third factor, which is also worth understanding, is muscle memory. Right, if you have a solid amount of muscle going into your cuts, which personally I would always prioritize and try to do as well, unless you're obviously excess body fat, but you want to have as much muscle as you can. There's a good advantage that some of it will also get a sacrifice to get you to your latest point, because going to low levels of body fat and very low body fat levels almost always comes with some loss of muscle. That's just the reality of it, and it's worth accepting rather than fighting over it and not wanting to try to lose muscle. But then here's the upside. That muscle you lost comes back extremely fast as well, by the way, especially when you're back into a surplus, because the cellular machinery of that muscle already exists. You've already built it, right? Your body isn't building something brand new from scratch. That's the best part. Instead, what it's doing is restoring what was already there in the first place. And that process is dramatically faster than building something from scratch, or trying to build new muscle that you previously didn't have in the first place. The hard work is already done. It just builds much quicker in that case. So in this first couple of weeks, when you go into a lean bulk after a cut, you've actually got those three things working with you simultaneously in your favor. Nutrition partitioning and insulin response, the catabolic to anabolic rebound, the accelerated muscle memory recovery. And that's why results feel so much better and almost surprising post-diet. Like, it's biology at play, and working exactly the way it's supposed to. Now, in terms of how I would then structure the lean bulk phase after a cut, is personally not about eating everything inside. The goal is a modest surplus. Right, something about 300 calories above your maintenance per day on average is just fine. Which at that rate, by the way, you're looking at probably gaining 2 pounds of muscle per month, maybe a bit more in the first month, given obviously everything we just talked about. But then over 6 months, that adds up to somewhere between 12 to 15 pounds of total weight, especially muscle gains as well. And if you're doing it right, especially, of course. And obviously, if you're doing it the way I told you to do it, the majority of that is lean mass. Some will be body fat, which you'll lose super easily. And here's what that means in practice. After 6 months of lean bulking, even if you've gained just a few pounds of fat, by the way, which you will, is an insurance policy, what you probably need is like a 4 to 8 week cut of getting everything back to your leanest point that you originally started off. But now you're carrying way more muscle than you ever were before. So every time you go through these phases, the cycle of cut, recomp, lean bulk, you're actually coming out on the other side bigger and leaner than you were going in. And that's the game. That's how we play the game, right? That's how we build a physique that actually gets built every year, every time. Rather than looking the same year to year, the goal is consistent evolution. The goal is to keeping yourself within what I call a striking distance of your goal leanness, not going too far away from it. Meaning you never really let yourself slip, or your body fat drifts so far that you need a 6-month cut again. But you do one diet, then you ride the wave of how responsive your body is, along with all the key points we mentioned. And ideally, if you keep yourself within 2 to 3% of where you want to be, you only need a sharp cut to get back to where you were. And then you can spend the majority of your time in that bulking phase where all the magic truly happens, or at maintenance, and just enjoying that physique you've built. So get lean, get all the benefits, stay within striking distance, do not dirty bulk, and obviously that's going to make it much easier for you for the physique now and the long term. But then one thing I do want to flag is, which kind of trips people a lot, which is important for me to dive into as well, which I'll probably do an extra video on, by the way, is the transition out of a cut. If you've been cutting super hard and immediately you slam a big surplus, or you go back to a surplus, you're going to gain weight fast. Again, your body's anabolic is going to gain, right? And a lot of it will not be the kind you want. But what works better is you finish a diet and then you eat within, let's say, a third of the time or a quarter of the time you spend dieting, you spend back towards maintenance, and go for a recomp. Stabilize body fat levels and the new levels and new body weight before you start to push back up. You normalize your metabolism, you lock in the leanness, you make it a brand new normal, is what we like to call it. Meaning then after that, you've normalized it, and then when you do start to build into a lean bulk phase, your body responds a lot more to those calories with muscle growth rather than fat storage. Like, it's just small adjustment in timing here. But you need to make sure you don't just go from cut to build. You spend some time maintaining that and making it normal, because that makes a huge difference in how clean the bulk ends up becoming. So to bring it all together, just to wrap up the video, cutting primes your body to grow in a way that straightforwardly helps you build muscle, and it allows you to progress in a way that straight bulking just doesn't. The improved insulin sensitivity, catabolic to anabolic rebound, the muscle memory, all of it stacks up to create a window of like perfect accelerated growth right after their deficit that you don't just get when you do it any other time. Like if someone goes into a building phase now, they will not get that. But understanding that changes how you think about personally cutting and the entire transformation phase itself. And it starts just being about getting lean. It starts being about the strategic part of muscle building and actually true physique development. You know, you cut smart, you transition carefully, lean bulk with patience, and you repeat that cycle for years and years, and that's how your physique starts to get better year on year, and you build your body year on year, not in a drastic swing in from, you know, high to low body weight, but in a way where it's steady, well managed, and accelerates and as it escalates upwards, right? So hope it's useful. If you've got any questions, drop them below. I'll try to get to them, and subscribe for more value, and I'll see you in the next video.